Hello and welcome to this lesson on how to sight read. Sight reading is a very important part of being a musician. We should be able to read a piece of music as fluently as we are able to read words on a page in a book. There is a process that we go through before we play a piece of music. We usually don't just dive right in and start reading and just kind of pick things up as they come along. Typically what we do is we scan the music. We look it over for different elements that we are key to preparing the piece of music and playing it properly. The ultimate goal, of course, would be to be able to play it just right the very first time. But that takes a little bit of practice and typically years of practice. Just like when you started to learn how to read, you learned your letters, your phonics, and you started to put together these sounds into words, and then they built into larger sentences and structures. And now you can read and comprehend larger pieces of information. And it's just the same process when we read music. It's just a different language. So the process that I would like you to follow is, the first thing we always want to look at, when we read a piece of music, we're going to look at this one, Alouette, number 104. Is the key signature. So we come over to here and we look right next to our clef and we see a key signature and we say, okay, this tells us that all of the B's in this song are going to be played as B flat. Everything else is going to be natural. So either A, B flat, C, D, E, F, G, all natural except for the B's, which will be flatted. Notice it's not indicated in the song. They're not going to write a flat in front of it every single time. It's just here, and as a musician, we have to know that that is going to be flatted every time we come across it. Next thing we look at is the time signature. So in this case, it's 2/4 time. So 2 beats in the measure, and we know that the quarter note is going to get 1 beat. Next thing we look at, we scan the music, and we look for any rhythms that might trip us up. And you can see in this song, we start out with one that might be a little bit trickier. Measure 2, we know that's just 1, 2. Measure 3, 1 and 2 and. We can count those fairly easily. We see those rhythms quite a bit. But here we have we have a dotted quarter note going to an eighth note. So this might be a spot that we want to write the counting in for it. So we know that a dotted or a quarter note gets 1 count. A dot adds half of the original value, so this is going to get 1.5 counts. So underneath it we can put 1, and this is going to be on the and of 2. And then as it pops up and reappears, we can maybe write it again, 1 and. And that way when we get to those spots, we really key in and kind of remind ourselves, oh yeah, this is one of those measures where I have to look at that rhythm a little more carefully as I play it. So we scan through and we see any other, any rhythms here that are going to trick us or kind of catch us off guard. We say, no, these are all pretty basic rhythms that we see quite often in most of our songs, so I should be pretty good. The next thing we do is we check the road map, meaning, are there any repeats? So we scan through and we see here, oh look, there's a fine and a double bar. Fine meaning the end. But then if we scan down, we notice that the song continues on. So as we continue on, even though that double bar there, which is usually indicating the end of the song, we have to keep going. And now we get to the end of this line, and we see that it says DC al fine, which means del capo al fine, which tells us to go back to the beginning. Remember when it's del capo, where do you wear your cap? On my head. And that's at the top. So it's just, you can sing back to the top, and we play till we see the fine. So then we come back here and we see the fine and then we stop. So the road map would be play this first line, play the second line, go back to the beginning and keep playing till you get to the fine. So now we know our road map. So now we know our key signature, our time signature. We've checked for any of those tricky rhythms that we've come across. We know the road map. And now let's look at the dynamics. So here are the dynamics. So here we go. Oh, okay. Piano. I know piano means soft. Let's see if it changes anywhere. You scan through and look. Oh, here's a change. Mezzo forte. So now we're going to get a little bit louder. So this time, once we get down here, we're going to increase the volume a little bit. And then over here, we get to forte, which is loud. So we're going to increase it a little bit louder than mezzo forte. Remember, it's not super soft, sort of loud, really loud. It's, dynamics like we talk about in class are relative, meaning piano sometimes might be louder in some songs than in other songs. It has to kind of fit with what we're playing. So as a musician, again, we use the most important and valuable resource that we have, our ears. And we say, does that sound musically correct at that volume? And if it is, good. Then we can kind of judge off of that where we're going to place the other dynamics. So now we go from piano to mezzo forte to forte, which means we're just gradually going to be getting louder in each section. And then right here, we have a decrescendo. So we're going to go from forte, and over these two measures, we're going to decrease the volume, so then we repeat back to here, we're back to a piano level. So now we know the dynamics. So now we know the key signature, we know the time signature, we know the tricky rhythms, we know the road map, we know the dynamics. Now the next thing we're going to look for are notes. Now notice I'm talking notes way at the end of this. It's almost at the bottom of the list. Part of that is because we know most of our notes, and we don't always need to write in notes all the time. But there are going to be a few instances where something might pop up. We might have an accidental in a song. We don't have one here, but we might get one here. Maybe this is going to be a C sharp instead of a C natural, so they write a sharp in there for us. Now here, we may, up to this point, we haven't played any B flats, right? But then all of a sudden we get here and there's a B flat. It's in the key signature and of course not indicated here, but maybe I played this the first time and I played a B natural because I just forgot that the key signature was there and it changed it to flat. Well, if I do that even just one time while I'm reading it the first couple of times, I'm going to write a fingering in, and I'm going to go 1. That way when I get back to that the next time through, I'm going to make sure I'm playing 1 there. And then the key to this is once you are confident and comfortable and you're going to be playing there 1 all the time, go ahead and erase that 1. Because it's just a little reminder until we get used to it again. So now we go from key signature, time signature. We check the rhythms. We check the road map. We check the dynamics. We did the notes. And we look up here, now we see this tempo marking. You'll start to see these above your music. This one says Allegro. Allegro is a faster tempo, so we know it's not going to be a slow song. We know it's going to be a little bit of a faster song, and so that gives us a little indication that what we're going to have there. Now, the next step would be to go through this quietly on my own, saying the counting and doing the fingerings on my instrument. So I'm actually got my instrument up in a playing position, and I'm going to go 1 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2. 1 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1. And so I go through the whole song and saying that quietly to myself before I play it. And then I'm going to go to the next step, which is sizzling it. So now in my head, I'm going to be saying 1 and 1, 2, but through my mouth, I'm going to be sizzling the rhythm and doing the fingerings. So now I'm going to go and you can really almost start to hear the tune in your head. And if you'd like to at this point, you can do one of two things. If you still want to give those fingers another workout before you play any sounds, you can go ahead and do the solfege. We've worked on solfege in class, and so you can write in the solfege or just say the solfege and go through it and start to hear that song in your head before you even played it on your instrument. So now we have a really good understanding of what this whole song is about before we've played a note. Now we're going to be much more successful at playing this song for the first time on our instrument. We've got the rhythm, we've got the notes under our fingers now, we know the road map, we know the dynamics, we know where the tricky parts are going to be that I'm going to have to focus on. And it makes playing your music so much more fun and so much more enjoyable. A lot of times what people just try to do is just jump right in and play, which is fine. That's great practice. But to really go through the process each time, we just get faster at it. So you might see a professional musician who would sit down with this and play it the first time. But what we didn't notice is that they had already gone through all of this process that we talked about just now. They've just done it faster because they've been doing it for a longer amount of time. So that is it. How to sight read. If you have any questions, stop by and see me. See ya.